Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe, Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe, Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra, Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra, Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Balagopal Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Balagopal Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Shrimadbhagavatam Hamsa Parvajikacharya Astutara Shata Shrimati His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Shrimadbhagavatam Hamsa Parvajikacharya Astutara Shata Shrimati His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Ananta Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam Ki Jai All glories to Assembled.
Narayanam Namaskrityam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Tato Jayudiye
Tato Jayamudire
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu
Nashtaprayashu Bhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Hare Krishna. So, before we get started, too, just quickly wanted to announce tomorrow is a very auspicious day of the appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev, the one who protects our bhakti. So we are having a program here at the temple starting at 6 o'clock. There will be a very auspicious abhishek with the recitation of the Nrsimha Kavacha. So please attend. It's very auspicious to do this on the appearance day of the Lord. So participate in that activity, and then the festivities will continue on Sunday. On Sunday, there will be cultural programs, wonderful prasadam, all kinds of fun and kirtan. We are having an hour-long drama done by the ISKCON Detroit Vaishnava team. It's a very professionally well done drama, so you definitely don't want to miss that. No tickets required. It is free. You can just come to the temple and enjoy. So dinner and drama on us. So please come to the temple. ISKCON Detroit for these festivities on both Thursday and on Sunday. Going back to the verse, so again, we are in Canto 1 of Shrimadbhagavatam. If you don't have a copy, pick one up today, immediately. We have copies available here. It is bringing Lord Krishna into your home. But today we're reading chapter 14, which is the disappearance of Krishna. So if you don't want to feel separation from Krishna, then bring Shrimadbhagavatam into your home. So we're going to read text 2. Vaitita katichin masa
Vyatita Katichin Masas
Vyatita kachitin masa
Vyatita Katichin Masas
Vyatita katichin masas
Vyatita Katichin Masas
Tadanaya toto nirjuna
Tadanaya Tatorjuna
Tadanaya tato jarna
Tadanaya Tato Arjuna
Tadanaya tato nirjuna
Tadanaya Tato Arjuna
Dadarsha Gora Rupani
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 Nimitani Kurudvaha
Nimittani Kurudvaha
Nimitani Kurudvaha
Nimittani Kurudvaha
Nimitani Kurudvaha.
Nimittani Kurudvaha.
One time, all the way through. Vaitita katichin masa
Vyatita Katichin Masa
Tadanaya tato juna
Tadanaya Tatorjuna
Dadarsha Gora Rupani
Dadarsha Gora Rupani
Nimitani Kurudvaha.
Nimittani Kurudvaha.
Anyone like to repeat?
Vyatita Katichin Masa
Vyatita katichin masas
Tadanaya Tatorjuna
Tadanaya tato juna
Dadarsha Gora Rupani
Tadarsha Gora Rupani
Nimittani Kurudvaha.
Nimitani Kurudvaha. Reading word for word. Vyatita,
Vyatita,
after passing.
after passing.
Katichit,
Katichit,
a few.
a few.
Masa,
Masa,
months.
months.
Tada,
Tada,
at the time.
at that time.
Na ayat,
Ayat,
did not return.
did not return.
Tata,
Tata,
from there.
from there.
Arjuna,
Arjuna,
Arjun.
Arjuna.
Tadarsha,
Tadarsha,
observed, Gora, fearful, Rupani, appearances, Nimittani, various causes, Guru Udvadaha or Udvaha, Maharaj Yudhishthira. So, translation or purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. A few months passed, and Arjuna did not return. Maharaj Yudhishthira then began to observe some inauspicious omens, which were fearful in themselves. Please repeat. A few months passed. And Arjuna did not return. Maharaj Yudhishthira then began to observe some inauspicious omens, which were fearful in themselves. Purport. Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is ad infinitum, more powerful than the most powerful sun of our experience. Millions and billions of suns are created by Him and annihilated by Him within His one breathing period. In the material world, the sun is considered to be the source of all productivity and material energy, and only due to the sun can we have the necessities of life. Therefore, during the personal presence of the Lord on the earth, all paraphernalia for our peace and prosperity, especially religion and knowledge, were in full display because of the Lord's presence, just as there is a full flood of light in the presence of the glowing sun. Maharaj Yudhishthira observed some discrepancies in his kingdom, and therefore he became very anxious about Arjuna, who was long absent, and there was also no news about Dwarka's well-being. He suspected the disappearance of Lord Krishna, otherwise there would have been no possibility of fearful omens. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakama Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajiva Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Malita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanustite Devi Paranamami Haripriye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So reading the translation one more time. A few months passed and Arjuna did not return. Maharaj Yudhishthira then began to observe some inauspicious omens, which were fearful in themselves. So, we just finished the chapter in which Dhritarashtra, his wife, Gandhari, and then the uncle, Vidura, has now left. And now This was after the Battle of Kurukshetra, all these things. Maharaj Yudhishthira is now king, and now we are seeing the departure of Lord Krishna from the material platform, material plane, from the earth. But as we know, Krishna is never really gone. He doesn't disappear. He disappears from our vision. But let's see about this particular verse today. So, again, in this section of Shrimadbhagavatam is going to describe a very delicate and important moment. So Maharaj Yudhishthira now is observing many inauspicious things, signs, both in the world and within himself. And Arjuna has gone to Dwarka, actually, he was gone to meet with Lord Krishna, but he has not returned, and it's even after a long time. I believe it's going to be like 7 months or so. So externally, everything may appear normal, but a devotee sees this as something deeper. So Maharaj Yudhishthira is not an ordinary person, right? As we've been hearing and listening to Shrimadbhagavatam, we've heard much about Maharaj Yudhishthira. He's a pure devotee, right? And a Raja Rishi, so he's a very saintly king, he's not like an ordinary king even. And because of his consciousness his consciousness is always fixed on Krishna, very much. And so he can perceive these subtle changes in the environment. A lot of times we just go through life in going and going and going, and we don't take notice of some of these things that are happening around us, right? Being present, being aware. We hear a lot about being present. So here, Maharaj Yudhishthira, can start seeing all these subtle changes that are happening around. And just like the sun is about to set, even before darkness comes, like if you've seen the beautiful sunsets over here, there's some symptoms, right? You can see something is changing, right? Like the glow of the sun passing, the changing of the colors, the clouds maybe changing colors. So similarly, before the disappearance of the Lord from this particular world, there are going to be signs. And in this chapter, we're going to see all the various signs that are taking place. And also, this is the very first point I'd like to make, is that a devotee is very sensitive to Krishna's presence. When Krishna was here on earth, present, everything was auspicious, right? Dharma was protected, kings were righteous, societies were peaceful, all of these different, which is very different from what we experience now, right? So this is described throughout the Shrimadbhagavatam. But now, as Krishna prepares to conclude his pastimes here and stuff, different disturbances are going to come. These symptoms of Kali Yuga are going to start to appear. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that whenever there's a decline in religion, he appears. Right? So when he disappears, naturally, your religion is going to start to increase. So Maharaj Yudhishthira, he's pretty much feeling this particular transition taking place because he is so close with Krishna, right? He is Krishna consciousness, so he can see these things. Now we understand, or we should understand, what are these inauspicious things that are signs that are going to be taking place. So in Bhagavatam, later it'll describe these unnatural events, such as animals behaving strangely, people becoming greedy, quarrels are starting to increase. So these are all different signs of Kali Yuga, right? We see it in the world today. How much quarrel there is within the family structure, right, itself. What to speak of other people and stuff. Greed has led to war after war after war, and we're still experiencing war after war after war, right? All of a sudden, animals who are normally on the streets have become family members and, t-shirts with "I'm a dog mom," right? And stuff. So, these behaviors are starting to appear. And the consciousness of individuals is changing rapidly. So in this verse, it's not just a historical thing. I mean, this is very much relevant to us as well, because we are actually living in Kali Yuga. So sometimes in the surroundings of the temple, we may not feel like we experience it, but the minute we step outside, it's there. So, and what are the symptoms we're going to have to experience living in this particular material world? Yesterday we were discussing in another class, anxiety, right? The amount of anxiety and the amount of drugs that are available to decrease anxiety in one's life is incredible these days. We never know what sets someone off, right? Because it's so much disturbance. We talked about conflict, dissatisfaction, right? The amount of dissatisfaction, like things are so instant now, right? That it's hard to become satisfied, right? With something. To be able to sit quietly has become like, I don't know if I can do it, right? And stuff like that. You need some constant, like, something to constantly, like, satisfy you and stuff. And even though materially society may look advanced, right? There's more wealth out there and so forth in certain, I guess, environments and stuff like that. But materially, we have so much technology, all these things. So we may think we're more advancing, with the increase of data centers and all that stuff. But why do we feel all of these different particular symptoms and stuff? It's because Krishna is forgotten, right? How many people are practicing God realization at this point, right? So with this forgetfulness, more and more symptoms are going to start to appear. So Maharaj Yudhishthira's anxiety, actually, his anxiety is different. It's not material, right? Material anxiety, we may think, or like in his case, like losing his kingdom, losing his wealth, right? We're always worried about my house, my this, my that, my job, my, all these things. But Maharaj Yudhishthira, his concern has is different, right? His anxiety is, has something happened to Krishna? Has something happened to Arjuna, who is Krishna's dear associate? He is feeling a different type of anxiety, right? Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Nachi Bhagwan Shri. So his anxiety is what we call like more spiritual anxiety. This is the difference between material consciousness and those that are in Krishna consciousness, right? So material anxiety is very much self-centered. I, me, and mine, right? Anything that's connected to I, me, or mine, and I want to control it will lead to anxiety, right? Where spiritual concerns are Krishna-centered. Where spiritual anxiety is how can we please the deities? How can we please Srila Prabhupada? Are the devotees taken care of? All of these things are more spiritual anxiety. And in ISKCON, following Srila Prabhupada, we're taught to transform our anxiety from from material to spiritual. So, and we're not taught to actually artificially become free from anxiety, right? Because truly, we cannot really be free from anxiety. If you're free from anxiety, you should be in Vaikuntha, right? Where there's no anxiety. So, don't become artificially like free of anxiety. Oh, I'm going to keep up everything. It's not going to work, right? That's not possible. But changing our anxiety from material to spiritual, right? That helps to purify us, right? It's part of our purification process. So instead of thinking constantly about me, myself, and I, right? What will happen to me if I do this and stuff? We think, how can I serve Krishna better? How can we take care of devotees better and stuff? And that is developing this anxiety, and the anxiety of being spiritually centered. So, another point in this relationship between between devotees, we see that Maharaj Yudhishthira is deeply also very concerned about Arjuna, right? And why? Because Arjuna is not an ordinary brother, right? He's also a great devotee of Lord Krishna. And the association of devotees is quite essential for everybody, right? If we lose that association, if we think about it for a minute, like how did we come into Krishna consciousness, or how did we become introduced to God, then some devotee has played some kind of role in our life, in some format, right? Whether it's through Srila Prabhupada's books and having association of Srila Prabhupada, to receiving a flyer on the street from a devotee, to, hearing about a program or being invited to a festival or something by a devotee. So somehow or another, someone has introduced us to this. And so if we lose that devotee association, if we lose that connection, then gradually, actually, our spiritual strength will also decline, right? And there's an analogy, just like fire burns brightly when there's many logs that are together, but when a single stick is removed from that fire, gradually it becomes extinguished, right? Similarly, like sometimes we see sparks coming out of the fire, and if the spark goes too far away from the fire, it loses its glow, right? It just dwindles. So similarly, when we lose the association of devotees, of saintly people, right, it affects our spiritual strength. That's why the association, Srila Prabhupada always stressed ABCD, right? Like, association is A, number one, right? Stay in the association of devotees. B is his books. By his books, we also receive association of Srila Prabhupada, right? And all these saintly personalities that we read in Shrimadbhagavatam, the information we get from Bhagavad Gita, this is also association, right? And through chanting, we are directly associating with Krishna through his names, right? He comes and dances on our tongue. And diet, most easy, eating Krishna prasadam and relishing that. Some devotee has probably made some Krishna prasadam, right? That we can honor and that we can relish and so forth. So, and having that Krishna prasadam is a purification process, right? And stuff. So staying in touch with devotees is extremely important. And Maharaj Yudhishthira knows this, right? And stuff. Now, another note with Maharaj Yudhishthira is he's noticing both internal and external disturbances. So his mind is starting to become uneasy. And at the same time, he's seeing signs in nature, right? So internal and external. This is kind of pointing to the fact, or it can help us teach us, that our consciousness and the environment are very much connected, right? Modern civilization that we see today separates these things, what we think is one thing in the world is another thing. But in Vedic knowledge, when we read Shrimadbhagavatam, it explains that everything is interconnected, right? Through subtle laws of karma and like divine supervision of Krishna and Durga Mata, right? Controlling what's happening within the material realm and stuff, and the three modes of material nature, and all these things that we learn about in Srimad Bhagavatam. So what our mind is, what our collective mindset is, our collective consciousness in our society, in our community, in our group, whatever it may be, that plays an important role of how the environment is going to be. Whether it's the social environment, economic environment, material environment, spiritual environment, that's going to play a role. So our consciousness, what we think, our mindfulness, directly will affect the environment that we're in. And this is what is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that material nature works under his direction. So nothing is accidental in this world, right? We're seeing so much destruction in the form of Mother Nature, right? All these storms and tornadoes and things like that. These things are from a collective, if we think about our collective karma, right? And what is happening in the destruction of Bhumi, like Mother Earth, and how much abuse and stuff we're doing within this material world, right? That is just almost a backlash onto what we're experiencing. So this all is working together, right? Now, at the same time, we see these things are happening and stuff, but we should not become overly absorbed in predicting like signs and omens and like, oh my gosh, this happened, means this is going to, there's a point of going to the extreme and stuff. So the real purpose behind all of it is to understand the root cause, that our relationship to Krishna is important. To have this God realization, to have a relationship with Krishna, to have a relationship with devotees, all of this is very important in order to create a divine shift in our mind, right? To keep a divine consciousness. That will help the environment, that will help everything around us. And we see Lord Krishna, when he is present, how auspicious things were, right? Because you had divinity right there in itself and stuff. But once it goes, we see this downfall. So if we can all create this Krishna conscious mind, this divine mindset, consciousness, then again, we can have auspiciousness all over the place. So practically, how do we do this on a practical level? How do we create this divine consciousness, this Krishna consciousness? First and foremost, as we've discussed many times before, is increasing hearing and chanting, right? Hearing is so important. Now things are available on our fingertips, online or wherever you want to hear, you can hear. There's no excuse for not being able to hear what's going on. Hear from the correct sources, hear from Parampara, hear from those that are attached to Parampara, and who have studied these particular books, Shrimadbhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Increase your hearing in those aspects. Hear something every day, right? It's food for your soul. It's food for your brain, right? It's food for your consciousness. Chanting in this age is, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, there's no other way, right? This is the primary method in order for us to purify ourselves, our environment, everything around us, right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If we want to create good, auspicious environments, we have to chant the holy name, right? The more people chanting, the better everything will become. Because Krishna is fully present in his name. And where Krishna is present, all auspiciousness is present, right? As we read in this beginning of this purport stuff. Once he goes, right, then everything becomes irreligion. So even though he may not be physically visible in our eyes, or we may not be able to see because of our material eyes, he's still very much accessible. He's still here through his names. And all we have to do is chant these three, Hare, Krishna, and Rama. Not very difficult. Anyone can do it. As we heard about earlier with Prahlad Maharaj, even a 5-year-old can do it, so anyone can do it. Second is to be present. Take note of your own consciousness, right? Yes, we can try to help others in their consciousness, but is your consciousness clean? First, help yourself before helping others, right? We always hear in the airplane, put the oxygen mask on for yourself first before others, right? And stuff. So observe your own consciousness, right? Are you feeling disturbances? Don't necessarily ignore it, resolve them, right? Take note and take it as a signal that maybe I need to reconnect to Krishna, right? If you are disturbed in your mind, maybe you're not so connected, or maybe you need to reconnect, or something needs to be resolved there. So take note of our own consciousness first, and then if you are helped if you're clear, if you're clean, if you're pure, then you can help others, right? And stuff. So take note of that. And finally, in order for us to take note of these things, take the shelter of devotees, right? They can be wonderful mirrors. Jeto Darpana, right? The cleansing of the heart and stuff like that. Sometimes it's difficult to cleanse our own heart and stuff, but when we take the shelter of devotees, of mentors, of those that we trust, they can sometimes hold up a mirror to you and help you understand how to do that, right? Where am I lacking, Prabhu? Where do I need to improve myself? What is it that, I can do better in order to become a better devotee? Take guidance, right? So take the shelter of devotees. Just as Yudhishthira Maharaj, he valued, Arjun's association, right? We should value the association of devotees. It's not easy to get this devotee association. If you find a devotee, grab onto them and take their association. Spiritual life is nourished through these relationships, right, that are centered on Krishna. So, we want to increase hearing and chanting, observe our own consciousness, take shelter of devotees, and lastly, understand what real auspiciousness is, right? Auspiciousness does not come from material arrangements. Oh, I finally got the job, I finally got the home, I got lots of money, I'm feeling all auspicious. No, right? Auspiciousness does not come from these material arrangements. It comes from Krishna's presence within our lives. Without him, even opulence becomes a source of anxiety. Having a lot of money causes anxiety, right? Someone's going to steal it, someone's going to take it from me, all these things, right? And stuff. So even the opulences that you have become sources of anxiety unless it's connected to Krishna, right? With him, even difficulty becomes an opportunity of purification. Opulences become a source of giving to him, right? And charity. So many things, good things come out of being directly connected to Krishna. So this verse is preparing us for major events now coming in this chapter. The disappearance of Lord Krishna, right? From this world. So Bhagavatam is gradually going to bring us to this point. But the important thing, teaching is that Krishna, he actually never leaves, right? He remains as his names and his instructions, as we know, and in the hearts of devotees. That's why these things are very important. Hearing and chanting, observing your consciousness, taking shelter of devotees, and understanding this real auspiciousness. So, let this separation deepen your devotion, right? And if we see many of these great devotees, as we're going to continue to read, they felt intense love in this separation, right? If you read Chaitanya Charitamrita and see the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, you can also understand this love and separation and stuff. So we can also cultivate this remembrance, even though we don't see Lord Krishna present before us in his full form and so forth. Let that anxiety to see him, let that remembrance to see him, let all of that build this love that we, oh gosh, I can't wait a minute without seeing Krishna, right? Just like, a lover can't be apart from his beloved, right? So develop that within our hearts. So, Maharaj Yudhishthira's concern here is going to be actually his expression of love. And that's what we have to learn from this. So, just a few takeaways as we conclude today. A devotee is definitely very much sensitive to Krishna's presence, right? When we come into this temple room, when we walk into this temple, we should be immediately understanding Krishna's presence in here. This is not our home to run around and trash or anything like this. This is Krishna's home, right? Inauspiciousness arises when Krishna is forgotten, and we can see that left and right. So help others remember Krishna, to remember God, to serve Him, to love Him, to be in His kindness. Spiritual anxiety is centered on service, and it's not on the self, right? We're not being anxiety about me, my, and I. We want to create spiritual anxiety. Association, most important. It's essential if you want to progress in spiritual life. And real peace will only come when we reconnect with Krishna. So take that time, reconnect with Krishna, and find that peace within your life. So let's, hopefully some of these, lots of lessons actually. There's lots of lessons always in Bhagavatam that come out, but if we can incorporate even a few of these in our everyday lives, it will lead to a blissful life. So thank you so much. Please forgive if I misstated anything, and if there's any questions or realizations, we can hear from you now. So thank you so much for your attention. Hare Krishna. Oh.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for the wonderful class. Yeah, many lessons.
Many lessons.
Yeah, I remember today, like, I was just reading the quotation, Prabhupada quotation in the Pujari book.
Oh,
So today it was like Prabhupada mentioned, like, today Krishna is everywhere. Just because, like, we don't have that vision to see Him everywhere, Krishna provided the chance, opportunity to to be in a temple and to worship Him. And that one, we have to feel Krishna, and that way Krishna is so much good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then I could understand how religious they were. I was like, they were very fortunate. So, devotees, direct association, and like after that much association, so they are like His love and His affection is so much to that he feels like he's missing someone dear to him.
Yeah, definitely.
And the nature, of course, is under control of Krishna. when Krishna, Lord Krishna appeared in this middle, then everything is just manifested according to His will, and it arranges in such a way that even I remember in childhood pastimes of Krishna, like how the grass and everything got smoother and nothing, like even the cows were being just making the ground very smooth for Krishna. And water should not be even hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Yeah. And those childhood pastimes of Krishna, we see there is difficulty, right? Like Dharnavata comes, right? Like a tornado and stuff. So it's not like, they didn't also experience it, but there was like a different type of the spiritual anxiety, Oh, Krishna is being carried away, save him, right? Like they're trying to save him and stuff. What to speak, Krishna saving them by obviously eliminating the demon and so forth. But it's a beautiful exchange of love, right? In those times of difficulty, in those times, we see, the Brajvasis, the Gopis and Gopas, and their interaction with Krishna during those times. So it's a devotee, as you see these spiritual things, right? They can understand like the beauty of it and so forth. But thank you, Prabhu. Yeah. And I was just thinking, like, too, when you were saying about the nature and the quote and stuff, like, just recently we had astronauts go into space, right? And when they looked upon the world, small little, dot in this vast blackness, right, of space and stuff like that, how can that be, right? How can everything be happening on the earth, like, properly? It's only by the hand of God, right? How can you explain all of these things? It's only by the hand of God. So we know, if we develop this consciousness, a little bit of faith in Krishna, and even in Bhagavad Gita, I think 7th chapter, right? Like, being the taste of water, being the sun, like, we can, if you perceive even nature within this world, how the beauty of that nature, where does it come from? It's just a spark of His splendor, right? Like, so there's opportunities to remember Krishna at all times in so many different ways. So please remember Him through His
Not to speak of nature, but our own body mechanisms.
I know. the fact that we can take a breath. So definitely. So many opportunities to be grateful for God in our lives. So thank you, Prabhu, for your realization. It's very nice. So keeps my mind thinking. Grantara Shrimadbhagavatam ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.